Today, I'm going to do something that was thought to be impossible. I'm going to raise a legendary Pokemon from an egg. Not just any legendary, but Raikou, the Thunder Beast that's said to be born from lightning itself. According to ancient legends, Raikou eggs only appear once every 100 years during the most violent thunderstorms. And tonight, that storm has arrived. The sky was tearing itself apart with lightning strikes hitting the ground every few seconds. The wind was so strong it nearly knocked me off my feet. But there, at the top of the mountain where lightning struck most frequently, I found it. A large egg covered in electric yellow and purple markings that pulsed with raw energy. Every time lightning struck nearby, the egg absorbed the electricity, glowing brighter with each bolt. The shell was warm, almost hot, humming with power like it contained a thunderstorm waiting to be unleashed. I carefully carried the egg down the mountain, feeling it vibrate with energy in my arms. Back home, I placed it in a specially prepared room with rubber insulation on the walls, because I had no idea how much electricity this thing was going to release. For 3 days, the egg sat there, pulsing with light, building up power, and then, during another massive thunderstorm, it hatched. The baby Raikou that emerged was unlike anything I'd ever seen, only about a foot tall, with oversized paws it could barely walk on, a tiny purple mane that sparked with static electricity, and those piercing red eyes that held the fury of storms. The moment it was born, a surge of electricity exploded from its body, shorting out half the lights in my house. This wasn't going to be like raising a normal Pokemon. This was a force of nature. The first challenge was feeding it. I approached slowly with fresh meat in my hand, kneeling down to its level. Baby Raikou growled defensively, electricity crackling around its body. But when I didn't back away, when I stayed patient and calm, it cautiously sniffed the food. Then, it gently took the meat from my hand with surprising care, despite its wild nature. That was the moment I knew we could trust each other. But everything changed 3 weeks later. I woke up to find Raikou's den empty. Panic set in immediately. I searched everywhere, calling out, but there was no response. Then I saw them, tire tracks and scorch marks leading away from the property. Someone had taken Raikou. I followed the tracks to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. Through the broken windows, I could see them. Team Rocket. They had Raikou trapped in an electric proof cage, weakened and barely conscious. They were draining its power, extracting the legendary electricity to sell as a weapon. Raikou looked at me through the bars, those piercing red eyes now dimmed with exhaustion and pain. I couldn't fight them alone, but I noticed something. A storm was building outside, the biggest one I'd ever seen, and I remembered what the legends said. Raikou wasn't just born from lightning, it could become lightning itself, but only if it was willing to let go of its physical form. I had a choice. Keep Raikou alive, but imprisoned, or free it by helping it transform. If it became pure energy, it would escape, but I would lose it forever. The Raikou I raised, the one that trusted me, would be gone. I made my decision. I grabbed a metal rod from the debris and climbed to the roof during the storm. Lightning struck all around me as I held the rod high, becoming a conductor. Before we continue, just a quick heads up, there's another really cool Pokemon story right after this one. I screamed for Raikou to break free, to remember what it really was. Inside the warehouse, Raikou heard my voice. Its eyes blazed red once more. With a deafening roar, Raikou released every ounce of power left in its body. The cage exploded, but it wasn't enough. Team Rocket had backup cages, backup plans. Raikou was surrounded, weakening again. That's when the lightning struck me. The bolt traveled through my body, through the metal rod, and down into the warehouse, connecting directly with Raikou. In that moment, our bond became a circuit. My life force mixed with the storm's power, channeling into Raikou. And it was enough. Raikou transformed. Its physical body dissolved into pure electrical energy, expanding into a massive lightning storm that consumed the entire warehouse. Team Rocket fled in terror as the building collapsed. I fell from the roof, everything going dark. When I woke up in the hospital 3 days later, they told me I'd been struck by lightning. Somehow, I survived. But Raikou was gone. Not dead, transformed. The doctors said it was a miracle I lived, but I knew the truth. Raikou had saved me, even as I saved it. Now, whenever storm clouds gather and lightning dances across the sky, I see patterns in the bolts, shapes that look like a running beast. And sometimes, during the worst storms, I swear I hear it, that same cry, Raikou, not sad, not alone, free. I lost my Raikou, but I gave the world its guardian back, and somewhere in those storm clouds, racing across the sky as pure energy, the Thunder Beast runs eternal. So I woke up this morning, walked out into my backyard like any normal day, and found something sitting right there on the riverbank. A giant glowing egg. I have no idea where it came from, but the second I touched it, it moved. I just stood there watching it for like 10 minutes, and then out of nowhere, this crack just splits right down the middle, and something inside is trying to get out. And then, there he was, the tiniest little thing I've ever seen, just sitting there in the broken shell, blinking at me like he had no idea what was going on, which, to be fair, he probably didn't. So I just let him do his thing, figure out how his legs work, you know? And honestly, it was the funniest thing I have ever watched. This little guy kept falling on his face every 2 seconds. Okay, so after watching him try to walk for like 20 minutes, I realized this little guy is going to need a proper home. So while he took a nap right there on the riverbank, I got to work. I wanted to build him something that actually felt like where he belongs. So he finally woke up, and I just gently carried him over and placed him right inside. And the second his paws touched the ground, you could just tell. He knew this was his. And then he just went for it. Went straight to the volcano first, obviously, sniffed the pond, ran through the little forest. This guy was checking out every single corner of his new home like it was the greatest place on earth. Alright, so first thing first, this little guy needs to eat. So I grabbed a bunch of stuff from the kitchen and just started throwing things in to see what he actually likes. Let's see what a legendary Pokemon eats. So after eating, he had a ton of energy, and I took him outside the habitat for a little walk. And that's when he spotted his first ever wild Pokemon, a tiny little Caterpie just chilling on a leaf. And baby Entei did not like sharing the garden. And just like that, baby Entei won his very first battle against a Caterpie, which, okay, it's not exactly the hardest opponent, but you should have seen the way he looked after, like he had just defeated a dragon. After all that, the little guy was completely wiped out. So I brought him back to the habitat, and he went straight to the volcano and curled up right next to the warm lava pool. And honestly, he looked so peaceful, but something was changing. Over the next few days, I started noticing he was getting bigger, like noticeably bigger. His fur got thicker, the smoke from his back got heavier, and his eyes, they had something different in them now, like he was starting to understand the world around him a lot more. So now that he's bigger and stronger, I figured it was time to actually start training him properly. I set up a little training area in the backyard with some targets and stuff, and from day one, this guy was a natural. But training alone wasn't going to cut it. He needed real battles. And right on cue, a wild Pidgey showed up in the backyard and started chirping at him like it wanted a fight. So I let them go at it. So after beating the Pidgey pretty easily, I thought, okay, maybe he needs a real challenge now. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, a Growlithe just showed up in the backyard. And this one was not messing around. And then they just went for it. This was the hardest fight Entei had ever been in. The Growlithe was faster, meaner, and it did not back down. But neither did he. And after what felt like forever, the Growlithe finally backed off. and Entei just stood there, breathing heavy, smoke pouring off his body. He was exhausted, but he won, and I could tell. That fight changed something in him. So I put him back in the habitat to rest, and for 2 days, everything was normal. He ate, he slept, he trained, but on the third morning, I woke up and he was gone. Just gone. The habitat gate was wide open and he had just taken off somewhere. So I grabbed my camera and followed the trail, and it led me all the way out of the yard, down the path, and straight into the mountains. And somewhere out there, Entei was looking for something. And up in those mountains, he found exactly what he was looking for. Wild Pokemon everywhere. Bigger ones, stronger ones, and he fought every single one of them. He was winning every single fight, getting stronger with every battle. But then, on the third day up in those mountains, he wandered into a cave. And something in that cave was a lot bigger than anything he had ever faced. And that's when the Onix came out. And I don't even have words. This thing was massive, like absolutely enormous. And it was not happy that Entei had just walked into its home. The Onix was too strong, too big, and then the legendary Entei flew back up to that cliff. And the Onix turned around. And they looked at each other. And everyone on that mountain knew this was the real fight. And after everything, after the egg on the riverbank, the first wobbly steps, the first fight with a tiny Caterpie, the battles, the escape, the fall. After all of it, the legendary Entei stood on top of that mountain, and the whole world knew a legend had been born.